Very well. Welcome to News Check and On Set. And before I introduce my guest on set, a number of events have been happening and are currently happening. To start with the head of state, President William Ruto, is in South Korea. And in South Korea, he is engaged in the Korea-Africa Summit. And we will be getting that report in our subsequent bulletin in regards to what they are engaging in and what are some of the avenues that Africa can be able to partner with South Korea for development. Another thing that's currently underway is the finance bill. The finance bill, we are in the public participation stages where it's your chance as a Kenyan to ensure that you voice your concerns in regards to the finance bill of 2024. And my colleague Abdi is currently on that note. And also some of the things that have been able to happen in the last couple of days is that you do remember on Saturday, the country did commemorate 61 years of independence in the Madaraka Day that was held in the great county of Bungoma. And the clarion call from the head of state who graced the occasion is that we need to be more united. And something that he said that really touched the souls and core of politics is that he says the days of ethnic politics is long gone. Something else that we have been keeping tabs with is the Mogoka debate. We'll also be touching with my panel of experts. 3 counties had already banned it before the court halted that. And a number of things have been happening. But there's a back and forward push in regards to this stimulant. We'll be touching on that. And also there are, be honest as Kenyans, there are cracks in the ruling coalition in regards to the UDA leadership, and also in regards to the politics surrounding the elections. And we'll be getting a keen look in regards to that and how the grassroots are continuing, and especially in the great county of Mombasa, among other issues. That said, allow me now to introduce my panel of experts, beginning with my immediate left. We have Mheshimiwa CNN, that is Charles Nguna, who is the MP for Mwingi West. Mheshimiwa, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Karibu sana, umepotea sana.
Niko tu.
Yes.
Amjambo Kenyans.
Yes, keeping good. The government in check still?
Of course.
All right, we'll be talking about that.
Yeah.
Just next to him, we have a leadership and governance expert. We have Kimani Mwangi. Kimani.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, bro.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah.
Looking forward to have discussion that will aid in elaborating issues to fellow Kenyans.
Very good.
Yes.
And just next to him, we have Dr. Churchill Saoke. Dr. Churchill Saoke is not a new face here. We have had a number of analysis with him. He is a leadership and governance expert. He is also a scientist, and he's also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Doc, karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Gentlemen, karibuni.
Asante.
To begin with you, Mheshimiwa,
Yes.
The opposition is having issues with, I even saw a news item, it was not a Kenyan one, but they were talking about the trips that the head of state is making, and this is no exception. What do you make of the president? Because if you ask a number of Kenyans, we say that the head of state is strengthening our foreign policy.
It's good to remain objective and also patriotic. But there comes a time when we have to ask ourselves, what are we getting as Kenyans from these trips? Like recently, we witnessed a visitation of United States of America by the head of the state with a huge delegation of members of parliament, judiciary, executive, even comedians. We saw it happening in the White House, and we have to ask ourselves, what are we reaping from this? Based on what was informed to Kenyans, I think we just went to US to collect debts. Because
but
everything...
we were told about, we have trillions in terms of deals.
Trillions of deals, but based on who is going to finance them, it is debts we are going to borrow from United States of America. When I look at the list of the things that were actually tabled, I cannot see anything that was a conditional grant. Everything was just debt. Even the road we are talking about, dwelling of Mombasa Road all the way to Mombasa Expressway, it is going to be funded by Kenyans. through toll stations and other things. We have to ask ourselves, what United States of America gave us as a grant, just free. And based on that, I think we lost on this. Because if we calculate the cost-benefit analysis, we went at a loss as a country. And it is time for the president who said we need to cut off the traveling appetite, which we have done in Parliament, actually. No, members of Parliament are not traveling.
But yesterday, the report from the Auditor General talked about 12 billion in the last 9 months, and especially local travel, and that is from Mheshimiwa.
If you look at what Parliament spent, it is less than 2 billion in terms of traveling. The rest went to executive, which is mind-blowing, honestly. We need to be sincere and tell Kenyans we are not going to cut the cost of traveling. Let us continue as usual instead of pleasing Kenyans and telling Kenyans we are no longer traveling while we are doing vice versa. Yes, so I am not really happy with the way we are traveling. The issue of South Korea, let us wait again. I can't judge South Korea trip until I see what the country is going to gain, or rather going to get. But I hope it's not loans. We have to, if we are going to get grants, actually free things, free projects, start projects to be funded, I'll be very happy to support the president with those trips.
Very well, that is Mheshimiwa CNN. But Kimani, looking at the president's foreign policy, the one he has adopted, let's be very honest, he's one of the most traveled presidents in the country. And from what we picked from the USA and from what we are expecting to reap from South Korea, Mheshimiwa here is a little bit reserved in regards to what we are gaining as a country. And from where you sit, the foreign policy that the head of state has adopted, there are some many deals that we had, including in film, in entertainment, in road, in infrastructure. What do you make of them?
You know, one of the major aspects that lead to growth of economies is investment through FDIs, foreign direct investments. And part of the reason why FDIs grow is when you have a strategy and a campaign to let foreign investors aware of investment opportunities that are available in your country and how well you can help them cut down on expenditure as they invest in your nation. You remember in the trip to USA, we saw Coca-Cola is going to increase investment in Kenya by over 20 billion, and Microsoft was doing so by over 230 billion. Now, when you look at the direct and indirect benefits we shall reap because of such investments, especially across the value chains, you realize it isn't something we can trivialize. We may have gotten a PPP contract signed between the ever-strong capital and Kenya to do the 440 expressway to Mombasa, which again comes with a lot of benefits. You can look at it from the point of the funding, but you can also look at it from the spark of economy that it is going to ignite through having over 470 billion being spent to build a road. We have benefits that shall be drawn across value chains. We shall have contractors do the road. We shall have supplies done to those who are building. We shall have labor. And we shall have growth that will grow along the road. There's a lot of benefits you reap from such. Remember, we also got 15 free helicopters that would aid us in fight for peace and such issues in East Africa. In as much as we committed to buy. Free? Yes, it was free. It was free. What we did commit to buy...
thinks there's a string attached.
No. What we committed to buy were 150 50 armored vehicles.
Yeah, armored personnel vehicles.
Which, if you do your research, will find that it will come at a cost of about 18 billion. But again, the end game was that we got goodies worth about 600 billion. If you could, in fact, it is more, because 230 plus 30 is 260. There was money that was given for empowerment of IBC and such like. We got deals worth they're about 700 billions. So in as much as the president is going out, it is good to look at what he's coming back with. Another thing the president has been very keen on is export of labor from Kenya. There are those who've been fighting it, and the reason being that we are having brain drain from our economy. But again, we can choose to be idealistic about the whole thing. We could choose to be realistic about it. It is true that we have a youth bubble in our economy, and it is true that we are churning out more graduates that we can employ. Now, when the president goes out to get jobs for them, and it is also good to note that diaspora remittance in this country is the greatest foreign exchange earner in this nation. It has gone beyond what coffee, tea, and even horticultural products are giving us. So it has overtaken all of them. So we are no longer an agricultural inclined economy. We are more of a logistical economy, selling services, selling labor, right? In exchange for what we don't have. So let the president go out, right? Let him convince as many direct investors to come and invest in Kenya. Let him even come up with concessions, tax rebates, and such things to have them come to the country to invest, because it is good for the nation. Let him go to South Korea. Let's see the memorandum of understanding he's going to sign that is going to help the nation. So if we judge his expenditure on how much he's spending, it is also fair that we also look at what we are gaining from his going out.
All right. Doc, from what I've heard is that Mheshimiwa and maybe Kimani are reading from different scripts. Mheshimiwa is a little bit conservative in terms of the trips. Are they bearing fruits? Kimani says we heard about trillions in regards to the US trip. This is a very crucial one, the Africa-Korea relations.
Yes,
From where you sit, where do you... And by the way, just to clear the air, we had extended an invitation to UDA and also a number of MPs. The one that we had invited, the last minute, he was caught up with something and was not able to come, because it's good always to balance from both the UDA and the opposition side. Yes, Doc.
Yes, thanks, Ben. First, it's important for us to appreciate that in building, the world is very anarchic. And every nation and every state is always there to grab opportunities that are there or that exist in the international system. And all that depends on how strategic a nation is, on how strategic a state is, and under the leadership of the heads of state, to be able to, to see the potential of the country that he leads and see how she can use that potential to galvanize the global opportunities for that particular state. And I think that, well, global diplomacy is very key. And my understanding is that the strategicness of this global diplomacy, which by extension now gets into the whole concept of foreign trips, is very important for heads of state. But the strategicness of those trips and diplomacy is what is important. And I think that it is right for some Kenyans to be pessimistic about the trips, because, you know, they just want to get to know the details of some of these discussions that happen, so that they can be, because remember that, you know, taxpayers' monies are being used to fund these trips, and so it's just fair enough for the country and the people to get to know, you know, these are the deals that, the specific details of some of these deals, because, you know, bilateral meetings can be very, they can be very elitist. They can be very, what I would call, up in the air. A lot of words and being spoken in diplomats can be very good in lies. And the details of how the sweet words of diplomats get into the realities of what the expectations of the specific people of the country want is ideally why this whole discussion is emerging. And I think it is incumbent on state, you know, agents of the state to see, and I can tell you for sure that in bilateral meetings, huge discussions are always being made. Big deals that have been mentioned here and even in other places will always be mentioned. The key question is how to make these big deals and big talks realities.
Exactly.
And I think that for me, this is actually where we need to have candid discussions, because, you know, bringing the big talks into realities is actually what will now make even people begin to realize that, you know, these foreign trips really make sense. These foreign trips are really worth the cost. And in as much as it might be too early to, you know, it might be too early to get to know really how fruitful these trips are, my charge and my challenge to governments and to the government and the people who are engaged in some of these negotiations is, the talk is big, the deals have been signed. The reality is when we get back with the deals, with the signatures, and to see the details and how we can make those big talks realities that bring change to the lives of people. There's something that I want to bring, which I've also had a very firm belief on. As a student of diplomacy and a person who studied diplomacy at very high levels, it is important for us to appreciate that in as much as we want to go out to look for you know, jobs for our people, countries do that, but they are more strategic on how they do it. They're more strategic on how they do it. Remember that when you go into many of the multilateral organizations across this country and many other parts of the world, you will actually be able to see that most of those multilateral organizations and even multilateral corporations, they are headed by some very key individuals from some countries. It is because those countries have been able to see the power of having their citizens in those key multilateral and multinational corporations, to an extent that their existence there actually bring back to their countries. And so, even as we look for opportunities for our young people out there, we should not be blind to the fact that these are people who belong to the state of Kenya. And their existence, it's not just about looking for the opportunities to survive. Just because they don't have jobs in Kenya, we are looking for them opportunities to survive outside there. We are a state called Kenya. We exist in an international system where we need to survive. And our search for opportunities for our young people outside there should all contribute into this whole thing of making our country to survive in the international system.
So you want
just to add on the state visit, I have got no problem with the president even traveling daily. Daily actually, not even weekly or monthly. My problem is the way he is executing that travels. If you look at the delegation that went to United States, close to 400 people participated in that. This being bilateral, multilateral talks can be held by a minimum of, let's say, just 20 people who really matter. Of course, there's CS Finance, it's a critical person. CS, of course, and governors, few of them, they are critical. But if you look at the number of people who went to the United States, it is a big question. What we need to know, it is to stop telling Kenyans we are cutting down the traveling expenses and just remain silent than telling Kenyans the opposite of what we are doing. The president himself pronounced him, telling Kenyans we have cut down the issues of traveling expenses. But if you look at the actual thing, even based on what control of the budget told us, it is the opposite. So let us stop actually giving Kenyans false information. I have got no issues with the president traveling, provided we will do exactly what we want. And at the same time, it is too early to speculate the benefits of the trip in the United States of America. Let us wait 2 to 3 years. We see whether we are going to actualize what was agreed. We have seen so many of them bilateral talks, multilateral talks happening, but when it comes to implementation, there is nothing you can really show. It is just an exercise of lip service.
We hope that is going to happen. We're going to see the fruits of that visit, because it was a first by an African head of state in almost 20 years.
Yes.
Away from that, Mheshimiwa, we also have the finance bill, which of course it has elicited mixed reactions among Kenyans and also leaders like you. And especially from where you sit as opposition. Right now, we are in the public participation stage. And I remember speaking the last time here and said that we as a country, we need a public participation act, the law that will give us a guideline into how we do the public participation. Reason being, I remember last year during the public participation, a number of Kenyans argued that in as much as we factor in our responses or what we would want factored in that bill, that does not happen. That mandate only sits with MPs, and we saw how the MPs voted last time. How can we avoid this? Because the finance bill is for Kenyans, not for leaders.
Based on the current year we have witnessed with the current finance bill, based on the inflation at the moment, based on the low disposable income we are experiencing at the moment with Kenyans, we have to ask ourselves, do we need a new finance bill? I wish we could have just implemented the same finance bill we had this current year, because the more we are taxing Kenyans, and I tell you the truth of the matter on the ground, if you look at the pay slips of the civil servants right now, teachers, policemen, anybody who is working with the government, we are at risk of subjecting everybody to negative territory in terms of the space slips. Majority of the people now are earning less than 3,000 net, less than actually 3,000 Kenya shillings. Now you impose other issues like the motor circulation tax. Do we really need that? We can seal the loopholes, the tax, the revenue collection loopholes. I know there are so many. If you look at the number of landlords we have in this country, almost 60% of the landlords are not paying what we call residential income tax, which can be sealed instead of adding the motor vehicle circulation tax. If you look at things like the way we are managing our revenue, we have always come up with the issue of inflating all the government projects. If we can look at on that issue, we can still save a lot of taxes from Kenyans. So me at the moment, based on the low income, disposable income the Kenyans are experiencing, based on the inflation rate, unstable currency actually at the moment. You don't know, today you can wake up, the shilling is eating 170, other days 130. We need to manage these erratic macroeconomic variables in our country. We need to stick with the current finance bill, implement it fully without necessarily introducing another new finance bill of 2024. So this is what we need. And I think when it comes to the floor of the House, which is this week.
Actually, that's why I wanted to ask.
This week, we are going to sit down as members of Parliament and reason. We have to be objective.
But Mheshimiwa, with all fairness, last year Kenyans, they had their input, but unfortunately when it came to the voting, we saw something that
the public participation has become just a normal exercise, but nobody takes consideration of what the stakeholders actually put on table.
So as the opposition, have you taken a stand already?
We have taken a stand. If you look at me, the last finance bill, I totally rejected it. But unfortunately, in parliamentary system, you go with the majority. I was against this finance bill 2023. This year, I'm also going to be against it because I don't see the reason why we should introduce the motor circulation tax when we have so many issues. In fact, if we are not careful, we are going to have what we call deficit because of overtaxation. Let us reason as members of parliament. We see what we can implement. Even if it is not 2.5%, we can lower that thing to around 1.5 or 1%, which will still increase the revenue collection of our government. So let us reason together. Let us say, this is Kenya for us. This is not Kenya for opposition or Kenya Kwanza. This is Kenya for all of us. We suffer, we pay taxes, all of us. So let us reason what is actually, what can be implemented without necessarily hurting the economy and hurting Kenyans.
Kimani, from where I sit still on the finance bill, I remember last week during the public participation, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers said that this bill, if implemented the way it is going to push a lot of industries out of the country, and of course that will bring a number of issues in the country. From where you sit, the public participation phase is currently underway, and the last finance bill we had, which became the Finance Act, a number of Kenyans had raised issues in regards to, we did the public participation, but we don't feel our input was factored in the Finance Act of 2023.
Firstly, the public participation is enshrined in the Constitution, especially on all PFMs. And public participation should not be a ritual. You know, where you gather people to ask them, it's like a choir.
And then you do something
They
different.
sing to you, you get entertained, and then you go do whatever you wished. The anticipation of public participation is that people should come out, give their voice into any bill that requires money to be collected from them because it is constitutional. Then their views should be inculcated in that bill as it goes to be fine-tuned for it to be tabled in Parliament. The views of Kenyans should matter. That's how the process should be. We've seen Kenyans from various sectors coming forward to argue, and I thank the professionals. They've not shied away from expressing the views, their professional opinions on this bill, which is very good. It is also good to note that what we have is just proposals from the Finance Committee. Then once all these opinions are put together, we shall have a bill that is redone after consideration of all these views. Then again, the parliamentarians will have the opportunity to pass the bill through the 3 readings before it is assented to become the law. What I may also wish to add is that the members of parliament have information that many of us do not have with regard to how the government is faring, right? They can tell you, for instance, that in this budget cycle that we are getting into, how much we target to collect from revenue, our local revenue. I think it is 2.4, if I'm not mistaken.
2.7 trillion.
2.7 trillion. And then they will tell you that the government will be paying out around 1.35 in terms of debts. The government's wage bill combined with consolidated expenditures and others which forms what we call the recurrent expenditure of the government, is almost 2 trillion. So What that means is that the government intends to spend before even we do the 400 billion allocation to the county governments. So when you put together what the government intends to spend vis-a-vis what it intends to collect, you realize we already have a deficit of almost $1 trillion before even we talk about the finance bill. Now, money can only be gotten from where the government think money exists. That is the saddest thing about taxation. Because again, you can't, taxation should purely be based on income because you can only tax income. Yeah? That is how taxation should work. Things like motor vehicle circulation tax, it goes beyond that because it is taxing assets, right? But again, you ask yourself a question: what options are available to the government to keep us afloat? So it is an act of trying to strike a balance whereby the government ought to look at the current state of affairs of the government in terms of the much money that it needs, vis-a-vis where to get that money, and how best to get the money without, again, impoverishing its own people and crippling its own economy. Who should help the government are the MPs, firstly, because they're the ones who will pass the bills. I keep saying, if you are opposed to a measure that the government is taking, other than opposing it, you also have that duty of giving alternatives. It seems like it is something the government likes to impose on the opposition. Don't just oppose, give us alternatives. But again, it is something that makes sense. If the opposition feels the government should not tax people or in terms of using their motor vehicle, then the opposition ought to sit down, look at the bill, come up with its own tax proposals that would counter what the government is doing. Like you've heard the honorable member saying that we need to seal the loopholes, which I agree with him completely. We need to ask ourselves a question: what percentage of Kenyans are paying taxes versus what percentage of Kenya should be paying taxes? Now, when we keep saying that we cannot concentrate all our tax collection on the 3 million people that are in the formal sector and a few others that we are able to get based on what they own. We need to expand our tax base.
Okay, kindly just apologies. Let me hold that thought. Let's first of all cross over to the Garden Inn, where the public participation exercise is currently underway, and get a few reactions in regards to that as we continue with this live discussion. We do apologize for that technical hitch in regards to that video where the public participation exercise is currently underway at the Garden Inn, and that is exactly what we are talking about. And Kimani, Mwangi, there's something you are wrapping up about.
So what I was saying is, there is that responsibility of the government to ensure they've brought everybody on board to contribute in the task basket. But again, there is also the question of how long can it take the government to do so? Because sometimes we say you can whistle as you walk. You may not be able to eat as you speak, but you can whistle as you walk. So some things will be done alongside the finance bill. We must appreciate the efforts KRA is putting to bring on board landlords, like Muhesh was saying. We've seen it has employed people who are going around all of our estates. I'm an estate agent, by the way. Part of what I do, other than being a governance expert, is that I run a real estate company. And I can tell you that KRA...
Mheshimiwa, these are the people you're targeting, right?
Yes, I can tell you that KRA is
do
really...
pay taxes, right?
Yes, I do pay taxes. I can tell you that KRA is really on the cases of landlords. The questions we are being called every now and then to say the landlords that we work for, it's quite a number. So there is a lot of effort geared towards... You've seen even Mama Mboga and everybody else complain that eventually KRA has caught up with them. So it is good to appreciate that KRA has gone out of its way to try and expand the basket as much as possible. So what I try to say here is, Kenyans must understand that our current financial position as a nation is not okay. We are collecting lesser than we need for us to keep afloat.
Yes.
We have not even talked of development expenditure here, but we've already exceeded our collections. So when you are in such a state, as a government, you must ask yourself a question. And that is why I would say, even if the government is going to borrow, we badly need that money, even if it is borrowed.
We have to.
What Muhesh should help us do in Parliament is to make sure that they pin down everybody who is responsible of spending our money to be held accountable, because part of the role the Parliament should play is oversight.
Okay.
And oversight should be across board. So the Parliament should start by getting us the thieves who are stealing our money. The Auditor General report is always available to them. They can put to task the EACC.
You know, Kimani, sorry for interruption. You are talking like a professional. Recently, I'll give you an example. A person who sold fake fertilizer escaped by just congregating 7 members of parliament going against 150 members of parliament. And that person survived. So you are professional in this manner, but you are not talking in terms of reality.
But I can
as well ask
Mheshimiwa, if those are his sentiments, what actions did he take as a member elected to represent his people as well as our nation? Now,
I'll tell you the action I've taken.
I don't think.
Based on that,
Let me answer.
based on that, we are coming up with an amendment of that standing order in Parliament. Now, if there's issue of impeachment, it will be done on the floor of the House by everybody.
Not committees.
No more committees. These 12 guys who are going to congregate somewhere in a room and save a person. So this time round, we are made.
When can we expect that to be done?
Very soon, by the end of this session, we will have that clauses removed, completely removed. So if you get impeached by the House, that is the end of you. You go home.
All right. Okay. Let's hear from what Doc has to say
Ben,
in regards of extending the tax bracket.
The reality is that the Kenyans are crying. Kenyans are feeling the pinch of the expansion of the tax base, whether it's for good reasons or for bad reasons. It is the people of Kenya are feeling it, and I think that it is important for leaders, in as much as there is the reality of what is required in terms of expanding tax base and things like that. We need to appreciate that you're dealing with human beings, and even Kenya it's not only Kenya that is in a bad situation financially. Every country, many countries are facing this, and I think that it's incumbent on national leadership to see how best to cushion the population and raise revenue in a manner that does not create stress to the nation and also even impact negatively to the growth of the economy. Remember that, in as much as, and I have said this several times in this forum, that we may expand our revenue collection and create fiscal policies to expand revenue collection, which might have negative effect in terms of people either finding ways to circumvent tax, or two, people, just wanting not to take the risks of investments, and that by extension will have an impact in the amount of revenues that the government will be able to collect. So, I think that sometimes when we get into increasing debt, the debt should also be used to help cushion the people from being overtaxed.
And Mheshimiwa, because of the interest of time, allow me to shift focus to matters national unity. I remember the head of state was this clarion call on Madaraka Day that we need to be united. But in the last couple of weeks, we've been treated to some politics in regards to supporters of the head of state and supporters of his deputy. But the clarion call has been national unity. I'm 100% sure, despite the fact that you sit in the opposition, you agree with these sentiments. How do we foster that? Because at the end of the day, that is something that the president has kept on hammering.
I'm very happy with what is happening currently. The way politically we are executing our matters, the way politically it is panning out. And when I see disunity between the members of parliament, the deputy president, even the president, I'm very happy. It means we are heading somewhere. Because always expect in politics those kind of events happening. But I want to correct our deputy president. When he says his interest is fighting only Mount Kenya, let me remind him he was elected by Kenyans, and he is supposed to take care of the interests of the Republic of Kenya, not Mount Kenya region alone. So that one, he was wrong. Secondly, any person, a Kenyan, has got fundamental freedom actually enshrined in our constitution. The freedom of movement. You cannot tell members of parliament, don't loiter all over. Personally, I have hosted a couple of members of parliament coming to my constituencies, the likes of Didi Nyoro, the likes of so many people coming just to do development in my constituents. So let us walk. Today I'm supposed to be free, actually traveling to Rift Valley, Eastern Coast, Central. So I think Deputy President need to read the mood of the members of parliament and accept to work with us without necessarily dictating where we are going to visit. And Oscar Sudi this time was right. Yes.
All right. And Doc, the reason I'm asking you this question is because somebody pointed out something that in as much as we are looking for national unity, we really need to be practical in what we are doing and what we are saying. Reason being, the universities that are scattered around the country, if you look at the vice chancellors of many institutions, he noted that many are from almost the same region or the same community as that, and that cannot really foster national unity. From where you see, how do we foster national unity? It's a good thing that Mheshimiwa here is agreeing with members of the ruling coalition in some aspects in terms of unity. And that is what the head of state was preaching on Saturday.
Well, I think away from the universities, I will not be able to delve, I might not want to delve much into the universities because there are a couple of other things that come into play whenever you have selections of vice chancellors, that it's usually very murky. It's very political. But I think on the broader scope of achieving the aspiration of national unity, it is important and the advisors of the deputy president need to see, you know, the need to build himself to help brand him as a national leader. Because you see, well, he could be politically right to wanting to galvanize the Mount Kenya so that he has a solid political constituency of the Mount Kenya around him, with which he can use to mobilize and negotiate for whatever stake he wants in forthcoming, either maybe financial or maybe political positions in future. So politically, what he's doing, he's right. And you know, the bad news, and this is real politic. The real politic is that all politics begin local, and he has realized that he does not have very strong anchoring on the ground, and you know that makes his position very loose, and you know anybody can be swayed anywhere he wants. So in as much as in terms of achieving the national aspiration of national unity, it does not make sense politically. In terms of real politic, it makes sense. I think the only problem is that he's doing it at the wrong time. He's doing it at a time that people expect him to be a national leader. But every other person who's reached national leadership has tried to do what it does. I think it's the timing that is wrong, that is portraying him negatively. Perhaps he needs to do it in a manner that makes people see him nationalistically. Right now he appears to be, and many people now see him as someone who is only defending the interest of one region, which then brands him very negatively, especially into the future. But I think that he can still be able to lay out strategies that help him to galvanize his backyard, but at the same time build his clout And these things are possible. I mean, look at the deputy president designate before he got into office, and the deputy president he is now. You know, the grooming and, you know, the way in which he handles himself has totally changed. So it is very much possible to lay strategies that can help him to build his national clout and at the same time solidify his regional political backing.
Kimani, an interesting view by Doc there, because what he's saying is quite interesting, that he can employ other strategies to galvanize his place but still appearing as a national leader. Reason being, we've heard of Luya unity, Mount Kenya unity, Coast, we've ever always, but mostly when we have elections. How can we do away with this?
No, it is important to note that the clarion call for unity among leaders from a region isn't only happening in Mount Kenya. We've seen the Luya leaders meeting. We've seen, I think this week we had a meeting from all leaders from Coast, especially to discuss on the issue of Mogoka ban and such like issues. And we have now seen the leaders from Northeastern again asking their governors why are they not joining in the fight against Mogoka. We've seen leaders from Embu. So it is something happening at all times. Because we say that politics is authoritative share of virtue, values, and resources. And now we also know that resources are always scarce. So what that means is that whenever there is a struggle for resources, there will those who will get, there are those who will wait for next time. You don't want to be in the waiting list when the resources are being shared. You always want to be among those who get their shares first, because naturally people will always try to pull or towards themselves once they've eaten. That's when they realize, and Dan has not eaten. But I wouldn't naturally remember you haven't eaten when the food is not enough before I've eaten. So Daktari is very right that Gachagua must understand that other than being a politician from Mount Kenya, that he has a bigger call, that of being the deputy president of the republic, a member of the presidency, and the principal assistant to the president. So he cannot afford to cast the image of a tribal leader in a nation with 45 tribes. Because if you fight for the tribes of Mount Kenya as a deputy president, when are you going to fight for the other tribes of other regions?
Okay.
And you being a member of the presidency, that squarely falls on your doorstep.
Okay.
So I think what the deputy president needs to do is he needs to have a team that can push for the aspirations of his region without himself being the one doing it. Then he can concentrate on healing the nation and uniting all the 45 tribes. He can concentrate on seeing how development should happen across board, but not from his region only, while at the same time having a team that has his blessings to fight for the affairs of the region where he comes from.
All right. Thank you so much. We're taking a short commercial break, but we'll be right back. We also have a look, as I had mentioned earlier, we'll be having a link from Mombasa, where we'll be engaging Mutungo Wambua, who is a county secretary for UDA in regards to the UDA grassroots elections. We'll be back in a short while. Very well, you're still watching KBC News Check. Thank you indeed so much for keeping me company. And of course, as I had mentioned earlier, is that we are crossing over to Mombasa. My colleague Ann Mburu is currently on standby with the county UDA County Secretary General in regards to the grassroots elections that are currently underway. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning to you, to Ben Troy back at Broadcasting House, and I'm coming live to you from Mombasa County. Right now, I am at the UDA Center in Nyali constituency, where right now the delegates meeting headed by the faction of Hassan Omar is ongoing. So right now I'll be talking to the Secretary General, who has been proposed ahead of the 22nd June grassroots elections, the UDA grassroots elections. So Bwana Wambua will be here as the Secretary General, who's just going to give us a brief of what is really happening here today.
Thank you, asante sana. Kwa majina ni Mutungo Wambua, UDA Secretary General Mombasa County. We are here today. This is our delegates meeting here in Mombasa County, representing the Nyali constituency, and we are going to go to other counties, that is Kisauni, Mvita, Likoni, Jomvu and Changamwe, to meet these people. These are the people, the bottom-up agenda, starting from down, coming up. So this is a grassroots preparation for the 22nd of this month, that there will be election for electing our polling center representatives. Yes.
We have seen that in Mombasa we already have 4 factions of the UDA group. We have Hassan Omar's faction, we have Senator Miraj's faction, we have Ali Mohammed, and we also have Bwana Ali Mbogo. So maybe what will you be bringing new to the table now that you have been proposed as the Secretary General of UDA ahead of the 22nd June grassroots elections?
Thank you very much. We are under the umbrella of the UDA Vice Chairman, Honorable Hassan Omar. What we are bringing on the table, like the Secretary General for UDA, is get the rights of our party members. Make sure the freedom they have been dreaming here in Mombasa, expressing themselves, improve the livelihood of our members here in Mombasa, so that they can be proud of this party when they're in government. We've been marked as opposition centers, carrying sufurias on the head. We don't want our mothers to do that again, and our sisters and our brothers. We want to be in the national government and harvest the fruits of national government here in Mombasa.
So why did you settle for the Secretary General position? Because we are meant to understand you wanted to be the chairperson of UDA in this region, but you settled for the Secretary General position. Why did you do that?
Thank you. You see, some of us, we also been part of the 22 election in August. We learned from the president how he was doing consensus. We were called on the table by the team of UDA, led by Hassan Omar, me and my brother Ali Amis Kitaka, and he saw our potential. They said, one Hala Amis Kitaka to be the chairman and Mutungo Wambua to be Secretary General. Actually, it was our members. They agreed, and we said, because we are one team, we move forward as a united front.
So as the Secretary General of the Hassan Omar's faction, what makes you think that you're going to clinch this seat when it comes on 22nd?
What is going to make us clinch this seat? You can look from behind. This is something we've been doing for almost 30 days. And we ran up to midnight, 2 a.m., sensitizing people. The machinery we have put place, only to win the election, but to popularize the party here at cost. Not only Mombasa. This machinery, you're going to see it in Magarini, Kilifi. You are going to see it in Kwale. You are going to see it in Voi. Because we want the coast region to be liberated. We won't say we are in dark ages, but we want them to see the light, to see what the president has, the vision for this country. And we don't want to be left behind. We need them to be in forefront, participating and benefiting for this.
As you've heard from him, they are very confident that their team is going to emerge the winners when it comes to the grassroots elections on the 22nd. Back to you at Broadcasting House, Njue.
Thank you. That has been my colleague Ann Mburu live from Mombasa. They are engaging Mutungwa Wambua of UDA in regards to UDA primaries in that county. And because of the interest of time, allow me not to canvass that conversation further because we are wrapping up on matters politics. As I alluded to earlier, is that we have Mheshimiwa CNN Charles Nguna from Mwingi West. We also have Kimani, Mwangi, and also Dr. Churchill, Saoke. Gentlemen, as we wrap up, the Muguka debate.
Yes.
If at all we have to ban, because a number of leaders, county governors, have said that we need to ban Muguka altogether. If we have to ban it, that has to come from Parliament.
Let me begin by saying no substance which is dangerous, if it doesn't kill. It is only the users. It is users who are supposed to be blamed. Muguka is not a bad thing. Same as alcohol, but it depends on how you use it.
Okay.
To me, I am going to oppose that based on the economic issues and social issues. If you look at the health issues and the economic issues and social issues, I think we should still continue using Muguka, but we need to control the youth, actually, who are the biggest culprits on this, who have been abusing the product, and we need controls. We don't need to ban it because economically and socially it's a good thing to our country. But in terms of the health-wise, we just need to control the amount we are taking.
All right. Final one?
Alcohol can be good.
Yes. But if,
if it's not used properly, it's bad.
All right.
Yes.
Your final words as we wrap up.
My final word is let me call upon all the members of Parliament to interrogate this current finance bill and remove everything that is overburdening Kenyans at this time of low disposable income and high inflation. Yes.
All right, Kimani. And of course, just like 10 seconds in terms of Muguka. If you've noticed, I'm quite sitting on the fence. Reasons being, I also have a couple of stems in my farm. And I don't want to be seen like I'm leaning on any either.
I fully support Mheshimiwa, but again, I want to sympathize with those whose kids have been engrossed into this Muguka thing.
Okay.
So it is an issue of regularizing the way this Muguka is used. Nature has vacuum. If you take away Muguka, they will still find something else to keep them busy. So I think it should be something looked into keenly, and I thank the President because he told the Council of Governors to form a committee that will look into this whole issue and come up with the best way forward.
Yes.
So I think that should be the best way forward. Let people sit down, talk about it. There are those who make money out of it, and there are those who make a living out of it, even down in cost. So it's an issue of let's sit down and agree on the best way forward.
Doc, wrap it up.
Thanks, Ben. I think for me, I would like just to emphasize the fact that, in some of the regional trips or the international trips that the government has been engaging, they need to democratize some of those deals that are emerging, especially so that people of interest could also see how they can contribute into some of the, some of those deals and engage even the programs that people are doing at their individual corporate levels can be able to help feed into the foreign policy of the country. So that's my parting shot and challenge to the government.
Very well, gentlemen. Shukran sana for making time for us that this Tuesday. I've been speaking to three distinguished gentlemen who are professionals in their own right. Beginning from my immediate left, we have Mheshimiwa Charles Nguna from Mwingi West. And of course, you can mention to us your chairman or part of the committees that you engage in?
Yes, of course. The committee, I'm a chairman of many committees.
Okay, just one. Because of
and chairman of the Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association, of course. Yes, and in terms of the national issues, we will be going forward and engaging the young people on how we are going to recruit more in parliament, actually.
Okay.
All the county assemblies, I believe, should be taken by young people, even National Assembly.
All right, thanks,
Wacha wazee waende Senate.
All right, just next to him, we have Kimani Mwangi, who is a leadership and governance expert.
Yes.
Just next to him, we have Dr. Churchill Saoke, who is a political analyst, a scientist, and also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and thank you so much for watching. On this second hour, we are looking at matters environmental conservation